They had that post-PSTD. They were denied help by VA. They turned to drugs and crime. A lot of VA had given them medicine to try to cope. Many went, and I told you about that today, but today, just not long ago, the American Legion, which I'm a proud member of, they finally found out what some of these VA hospitals are doing to our servicemen. It took 20 people to die before the federal government got in down to Phoenix, Arizona to find out why, because they could not get an appointment. And not long ago, as a matter of fact, it was just this year when I was down there, President Obama drove by the VA hospital on 2 occasions and did not stop. Talk about a slap in the face. There are literally thousands of people in a penal institution right now, ex-servicemen. In Marion County, there are 20 veterans arrested weekly because of some coping skills that they lack. In Marion County, just recently, within the last couple of months, they set up what's called a veterans court. A veteran gets not a felony, but gets mixed up in a crime. He's given the opportunity to go to veterans court. At that time, by the way, everybody that's in that court system is a veteran, to include the judge. So what they do, they have to tell you, you volunteer. I want to go to the veterans court. And there's a lot of criteria they got to commit to in order to have their record expunged. Number one, they have got to agree to a urinalysis test any time of the day or night. Failure to report when you're told to, you're out of the program. They're given a mentor who is an ex-military person to mentor them along. And they're given objectives to fulfill to help those guys. So that in Marion County is the only one here in Indiana. The other outlying cities are looking at their module down there now and copies modeled after that. I don't know if you realize this or not, but since the 9/11 attack, there's over 3 million service people that's gotten out of the military. And again, we talk about coping skills. And I feel sorry for these guardsmen and the reservists. They bring them back after a year of combat, bring them back. Bring them back.
Hey, can you hear me? Hey, 1 second here. Okay. All right, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, just fine.
Great.
Awesome. I kind of have I'm on an iPad here. I have a control center computer set up for the recording aspect.
Cool.
And then we're going to try and send this to our AirPlay and see if that works.
All right.
If not, the audience might just get the voice part.
Okay. All right. We'll see
That'll work.
So I will just put you on hold here for a second while our guy here wraps up.
Sounds good.
Thanks, man.
Good thing.
Back camera, so it's just the two of us here. All right, Brett, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. I'm going to try and get a microphone here.
Okay.
All right. We lost our AirPlay here. So I will show you the lodge here.
Hello. I can only see black, but that's okay.
All right. Well,
I'll imagine that everyone looks wonderful.
all right. Well, we'll try this. We'll try this one more way, real quick.
And now I can see your head.
Oh, there we go. All right. So now you can see the lodge.
Okay, there they are.
All right. I know it's really quiet, so we'll try and get this back. All right. And this will just have to be the best we can do for now.
Sounds good.
All right. So you run the Art of Manliness website. You want to tell us, how did you make the switch to being an online author, so to speak?
Okay, yeah, I'll tell you how it got started. I started the website in 2008 when I was a second-year law student. And the reason why I started it was sort of selfish reasons. I was tired of the men's content being put out in men's magazines. And I was just tired of it. It's all about six-pack abs, clothing that was just, like $3,000 for a sweater. These extravagant trips that, I was a broke law student. I'd never be able to afford. And I just didn't relate to it. And I felt like it didn't resonate with the idea of masculinity that I had. And that I got from my grandfather, who's a World War II veteran, my father. It just rang hollow. And so I decided basically to start the men's magazine that I would want to read. And that's what I did. I started, domains online cost $10, so I bought the Art of Manliness. I started blogging, and I shared it with some of my law school friends and some other friends, and I really didn't think I didn't have grand ambitions for it. I didn't think it would explode into this big giant thing that it is today. But that's what happened. And like in a few short months, I was getting so much traffic that my site was crashing. And what I found was that a lot of other men out there who were my age, in their 20s, in their 30s, even in their 40s, they felt the same way that I did. That they were tired of the way, the way men were portrayed in pop culture, and two, they were tired of what was being put out there as what it meant to be a man. It just rang hollow for them. And that's why they were attracted to the site. And so I graduated law school, and I didn't take the bar exam, though, much to the chagrin of my parents, because by the time I graduated law school, I was earning enough revenue from the website through advertising and some other streams, writing books and whatnot, that I could do it full time. And that's what I've done. So since 2009, I've been running the Art of Manliness full time, and now we're getting about 11 million page views a month, primarily from men in the United States, but we also have visitors from around the world, and it's grown into this big thing. So that's where we got to today.
Wow, 11 million a month?
Yeah.
So, all right. So, well, what about your journey with Freemasonry, and how does that tie into the website? So
this is related. The website. The reason I am a Freemason today is because of the website. So I've, like a lot of young men growing up, I had a sort of a fascination with Freemasons. You read about them in U.S. history, of course. National Treasure with Nicolas Cage, piques your interest, where you have all these secret codes and treasure hunts involving Freemasons. You think that's pretty cool. And with my the research and writing that I do on the Art of Manliness, I quickly discovered that the influence Freemasonry had on American masculinity. During the 19th century, in the sort of the peak of the fraternal movement, I mean, it was like 1 in 3 men in America were Freemasons. And so it really did shape a generation of men and how they perceived manhood and masculinity. And I was drawn to the ideals that Masonry put forth. And what was interesting, the content that I was putting out, I inadvertently attracted a lot of Freemasons. They resonated with what I was putting out there. I was writing about Benjamin Franklin and his 13 virtues. I was writing about the importance of rites of passage and initiations for men. And so I had quite a substantial Masonic readership. And to the point where a lot of people thought I was actually a Freemason. They would actually send me emails saying, have you been to the East? And I was like, what does that mean? What are you talking about? I had no idea what that meant. Or are you a traveling man? I went to Vermont like last month. But nothing. But there was a guy named Cliff Porter. He's based out of Colorado. And he invited me to his Scottish Rite Valley just to give a presentation like what I'm doing right now with you all about masculinity and manhood. I went out there, really enjoyed it, and then afterwards he was like, "So Brett, have you looked into becoming a Freemason?" And I said, "Actually, yeah, I'm actually been interested, and I've been looking into it. I just haven't found a good lodge to join." And he said, well, I know there's this new lodge that just opened up in Norman, Oklahoma. I think you should check it out. I think you'd like them. And the lodge was Veritas Lodge. It was a traditional observance lodge that was just starting up by a bunch of guys they were my age. They were in their 20s and 30s. So started going, petitioned, and I was initiated in 2009. And so yeah, that's how I joined. So because of the blog, I actually found Freemasonry, and it's been a great experience so far for me.
So how many posts do you think you have on the blog by now?
We have over 2,500 pieces of content, and as you said in the intro, I mean, it runs the gamut from the really practical, like how to tie knots, how to shave, how to tie ties, like stuff that you think a grown man should know by the time he's 20. But then we also get philosophical. We'll write content about the history of masculinity throughout the world and in different cultures. We've done content about the history of honor and what honor has meant throughout cultures and throughout time. And we'll just get silly. Sometimes we'll just do some funny illustrations like what's one we did? We did one like how to kick down a door, which was sort of silly, or like how to gird up your loins. You read that in the Bible, girding up your loins, and it sort of means like man up. And I always wondered like how do you actually do that? And so I researched it and figured out how the ancient Israelites girded their loins, and created like a comic of how they did that. So yeah, anything and everything that you'll want to know about improving your life as a man, you're going to find it there.
Now, if I remember that illustration correctly, they literally were tying up their robes around their groin, and that was how they would gird them.
Yeah, they basically created a diaper for themselves with their robes. Basically, they just wanted to get the hems of the robes off the ground and out of the way so they could run, and they wouldn't be tripping on it during battle.
All right, well, so we're doing kind of Man Month here. We're doing a series of presentations on manliness, so you're the perfect guest. You'll see some Movember participants. I'm wearing a particularly ridiculous one myself right now. So what would what are some keys that you've kind of discovered to modern manliness? There seems to be this resurgence of interest in modern masculinity and reclaiming that. What do you kind of see as being key elements of that?
Well, I mean, within the popular culture, you're seeing all sorts of different things. So there's the whole lumber sexual, like guys dressing like lumberjacks, even though they lived in like Brooklyn, New York, and they didn't live in near forest. So they grow the big bushy beard and wear flannel. And it's kind of that's sort of silly. I think they're trying to recapture something that they haven't experienced, but they want to. I mean, I definitely think there's an itch amongst modern men. But here's the problem with modernity for men. In a lot of ways, modern life it doesn't need men, right? And I know that sounds like silly from a guy who writes about the art of manliness. But if you think about it, it's true. Thanks to technology, we have been able to replace men replace men in tasks that only men used to perform. So, for example, like hunting, since time immemorial, a man hunted. That was their job description. But now, thanks to farming and modern agriculture, like you get your meat nicely packaged at the Whole Foods or Walmart or whatever. You don't have to go out there and hunt it if you don't want to. We have technology now where we don't need every single man. So today is Veterans Day, and I think it's tomorrow is officially Veterans anniversary of the Marine Corps. We live in a world today in America where we don't need every single man to enlist and serve in the military. And a lot of it is because it's a safe place, but also because of technology. We have drones that can multiply the force of men. We don't have to send men out to the battlefield. We can use technology to solve that problem. And so you find men, a lot of young guys in their 20s and 30s, who are looking for ways to express their masculinity, scratch that itch they have within them, to be manly, to protect, to provide, and they're looking for different ways to do that. And so you see it in sort of silly ways: grow a beard, wear flannel shirts, look like a lumberjack, and that's fun. But I mean, honestly, the way I approach masculinity on the site and with the content that I do, is I'm trying to revive a classical ideal of manliness, something that's timeless and doesn't change. So the idea of masculinity or manliness that I'm trying to promote on the site comes from the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans, and it lines up really well with Freemasonry. So if you were to ask an average guy on the street in America today, what does it mean to be manly? You're going to get answers like, oh, well, being manly means, watching sports and being really big and strong and, drinking beer and, using chainsaws and power tools. Like, that's what manliness means. So it's very superficial, sometimes funny and comical. But if you were to go back to ancient Rome, and even all the way up until about the middle of the 20th century in the West, in the United States, you were to ask a man, what does it mean to be manly? You'd get a completely different answer. For them, they would say, well, to be manly, to be virtuous, basically, right? So the Roman word for man is vir. It's pronounced weir, but it's spelled V-I-R. So vir means man, and viris means manly. That word vir is where we get our word virtue today. And so for the Romans, being a man meant being virtuous. That it meant being courageous. So that meant being courageous on the battlefield, but also in the public sphere, willing to stand up for what you believe in and to fight for that. It meant being temperate. It meant being prudent. Are these all sounding familiar to you all?
Oddly enough, you have a poster with some of those, do you not?
Yeah. I mean, these are some of the virtues of Freemasonry. And so it really, I mean, that's what it meant. And in the ancient Romans, like, there was a difference between a man, right, and a male, right? Natural-born males. And to become a man, to be considered a man within the community, you had to display these various virtues. The same with the ancient Greeks. Ancient Greeks had a very similar idea. For them, manliness was tied up with andria, or courage. and that was for the Greeks. The Greeks are very warlike, so they really put an emphasis on martial courage, but they also wanted their citizen soldiers to develop other virtues as well, to sort of act as sort of a softener, and create well-rounded men. And yeah, I mean, it's funny. You read like ancient text, and you'll see the authors describe someone as, as someone as manly. Like Marcus Aurelius was manly, and they didn't mean Marcus Aurelius drank beer and had chainsaws and was really hurly-burly. Like he meant that Marcus Aurelius had developed certain virtues to the point where he was refined, but also at the same time fierce and able to fight for those virtues if needed. And if you go all the way even up into the 18th, 19th century, you'll see the same thing. Manliness used in this way to describe sort of a masculine virtue. There's like poems out there from the 18th and 19th century talking about the manliness of George Washington, the manhood of George Washington. And again, they weren't talking about how George Washington was really, kind of Tim Allen type. They were saying that George Washington had developed certain virtues, such as honor, courage, strength, both of character and of physicality, to the point where he was considered manly. And honestly, I love that ideal because I think it's timeless, because we still need men who are like that today. And in fact, I would say we need them more than ever. Whenever we're living in a society where we have a very warped idea of manliness, where a lot of young guys think to be manly means they have to be rude and crude, disrespectful to women, all these just very destructive to society. And I think it's important that we have this idea out there that no, it means that you develop these virtues, and not only that, you try to be a benefit or a positive influence on the society around you.
All right, so that itch is clearly out there. We have a lot of young guys, myself included, joining our lodge recently. So if you could give like one piece of advice or cause one shift in kind of that young male generation today, the 20 to 30 somethings, like what would you tell them, or what piece of advice would you give, or what one thing would you change or shift?
So I think I would have them read a lot more history. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of young men who think, being virtuous and it's sort of sissy stuff, right? And it's just sort of dumb and old-fashioned. But if they were to read history and look at some of these great men that were really, they were just like really rough and tough dudes on the battlefield. Like, so Teddy Roosevelt is a hero of mine. Did phenomenal things with his life. It was just all around super manly and sort of that hurly-burly sense. But he also had a very refined sense to himself as well. In fact, one of his sons said that he had the sentimentality of a woman. This is the same guy who killed a mountain lion with his own bare hands, would box and wrestle in the White House. And there's all sorts of other examples of men like that who developed both these like very hard virtues that I think a lot of young men in particular find attractive. So being strong, being courageous, willing to fight, and things like that. But at the same time, they had developed this other softer side to them that tempered the harder virtues and helped them become a complete man. So yeah, I would tell them, say, if you have some heroes from the past, read more about their lives. I think what they'll find is a more complete picture of masculinity.
Yeah, you did a great series on Winston Churchill not that long ago that I really enjoyed. And so to wrap it up here, what would you say is your favorite piece of content from the site?
Man, that's like picking children.
I know, isn't it? A favorite, your favorite at right now.
A favorite right now. Well, one we just did that has resonated with a lot of people, and I still like it, is the one we did about C.S. Lewis and J.R. Tolkien, about the conversations they had that led to C.S. Lewis converting from atheism to Christianity. And reason why I like that story so much is because it explains the power of conversation. And when I mean conversation, I mean real conversation. What was amazing about J.R. Tolkien, and he never tried to convert C.S. Lewis. His goal wasn't to be right and to show C.S. Lewis that he was wrong. He wasn't trying to debate him. And I feel like today, I think thanks to the internet, we have this tendency to approach conversation. We call it conversation, but it's really debate. We want to be right and prove a point, and just show that the other guy is wrong. But that's not how change happens. Change happens through very gentle, slow, long-term conversations with people. And I think that is a lesson that all of us can learn. It's useful for our own lives if you're dealing with your children. I know there's my kids are still young, so they haven't done anything incredibly stupid yet, except things that would a 5 or 2-year-old do. But I know there's gonna be those moments where they're gonna do something when they're a teenager, and they're just gonna be like, "I want to strangle you," and I gotta sit down with you and just like pummel in your head like why this is wrong. When that might actually be counterproductive, and it might drive them further away from me. Instead, I should start having these conversations, and it could be useful in the lodge, right? There are instances with human beings where lodges are a social organization. Headbutting, and there's gonna be instances where you're gonna like want to, just pound a brother in the head because like I can't believe you don't see my point. But you have to just engage in that back and forth conversation without any expectations that the guy's gonna change his mind right away. But just slowly but surely through long-suffering, gentle conversation, change can happen.
All right. Well, Brett, thank you very much. It was great having you. We've got to get upstairs to a fellowcraft degree here.
All right. Well, that's my favorite one. That's a great one.
Well, it was fantastic talking to you. Thank you so much. And
Thanks for having me.